You can hear me. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the secondary market trading of municipal bonds. I would like you to know that this entire first segment is dedicated towards these municipal bonds, and the regulations are staggering in volume. Everything that we discussed in the first segment associated with the primary market and underwriting process associated with municipal offerings for GO and revenue bonds is now a prerequisite to today. And I want to tell you that these bonds are trading on NASDAQ in the over-the-counter market. Usually bought and sold and traded mostly on an institutional basis, although you'll be buying and selling and trading municipal bonds and positions for your clients, your retail clients. And I'd like you to know that whenever you're in the over-the-counter market, what do we know about that marketplace? It is a negotiated market. Please never forget that. There is no physical location. It's an environment of automation with systems that facilitate execution, because that's the only location that those securities are traded within. Therefore, when we started this program, we talked about the over-the-counter market for stocks and equities. We talked about NASDAQ. We talked about the NASDAQ global market. We talked about Supermontage, the CQS system, OTCBB. Those were systems of electronic execution that facilitated trading in the over-the-counter market. Well, municipal bonds are no different. They need systems and also sources of secondary market information that facilitate the buying and selling and trading of municipal bonds. Your first system in the secondary market is known as SEVN, the Brokers Communication Network System. Now, there are two institutions that are down here on Wall Street that are truly legendary. They are Chapdelaine and J.J. Kenney. These institutions represent broker-dealers. That's why they're called a broker-broker. Let me show you how they're utilized. Let me show you how a trade goes off. What if I told you that Solomon Smith Barney contacts David Lerner, contacts Chapdelaine, I should say, and says, Chapdelaine, Solomon Smith Barney here. We have a client on behalf of Solly, one of our institutional clients, that's interested in buying a $500 million block of California freeway revenue bonds. This block, if it's maturing in the year of 2015, that would be fine for our clients. If the block has a nominal yield of 6% and they happen to be callable bonds, that's also fine for our client. Chapdelaine, can you go out there in the secondary market and represent Solomon Brothers and see if you can find that block so we can purchase it for our institutional clients? Another quality MSRB member firm like David Lerner and Associates might contact J.J. Kenney, and they might say, J.J., David Lerner here. We here at David Lerner own in our inventory proprietary trading account a $250 million block of Iowa revenue bonds. We would like you to go out there in the market, if you can represent us, JJ, and see if you can find a buyer for our position so we can go flat at the end of the trading day. What are these institutions being utilized for? They are Series 7 Bullet 1, matching the orders for buying and selling broker-dealers. That's why they're called a broker-broker. And they get paid, Series 7, when they facilitate a transaction, 7 by the selling broker-dealer on the sale side. They're going out there in the secondary market, the Chapdelaines and the J.J. Kenneys of the world, either looking for a block for a buying broker-dealer of inventory, or maybe they're looking to sell a block for a selling broker-dealer out there in the secondary market. These two institutions, Series 7, Bullet 3, do not disclose the identity of the buying nor selling broker-dealer. They maintain confidentiality. These institutions, Chapdelaine and J.J. Kenney, are neither buying nor selling municipal bonds themselves, but rather going out there in the secondary market to match the order for a buying broker-dealer who might be looking to purchase the block, or a selling broker-dealer who might be looking to sell a block out there in the secondary market. And they are very aggressively used as a tremendous network system, source of information, known as a broker-broker system communication network. Are you with me so far? Yes. And these are the types of resources that you're seeing now that facilitate buying and selling and trading on NASDAQ in the over-the-counter market for municipal bonds. Don again.
So are there two sides to the broker-broker, like the buyer and the seller?
They can represent a buying broker-dealer, or they can go out there and represent a selling broker-dealer.
Why is only this? Why does the selling broker-dealer get paid?
The selling broker-dealer is going to pay the Chapdelaines and J.J. Kenneys of the world, not on the buy side.
That's using the broker?
No, but no, they're going to get paid by the sale side. Okay? Your next system and source of information is very powerful. It is called a bond buyer. And I brought it in for you. And there it is. This is the bond buyer. Take a look at this publication. This is no ordinary newspaper. And by the way, don't go on the newsstands to try to buy it. No, that's not me. Thank you very much. This is not sold on the newsstands. This is a publication of Standard & Poor's, the bond buyer. This is the Bible newspaper print medium of the municipal bond markets. And it's prepared by S&P and sent right over to the institutional municipal bond block side trading desks of MSRB member firms. Now, if you want to know anything about municipal bonds, go in revenue, it's in the bond buyer. This is not a Govy publication. This is not for corporate bonds. This is a municipal bond publication. So, we talked yesterday about competitive notices of sale. Remember I told you they were full display ads of full pages? This is a competitive sale notice. A notice of sale, the amount and the purpose of the bond issue, the time and the place that bids will be cracked open up, the date, how bonds are registered, interest payment dates. Look at the size of this publication, of this display advertisement. If you would like to know about a new issue calendar, about IPOs that are getting ready to come public and come out there in the underwriting marketplace for GO and revenue municipal bonds, it's in the bond buyer. Would you like to take a look at the results of negotiated sales on revenue bonds? Right here. Would you like to take a look at maybe some issuers who might have engaged in refunding for defeased bonds on debt restructuring? Right in this particular publication. Any aspect associated with municipal bonds is in the bond buyer. Well, there's a couple of statistics that you read about last night that are prepared by the bond buyer within the bond buyer concerning GO and revenue municipal bonds. And the first statistic, and they're right in here, is called Series 7, the 30-day visible supply. The 30-day visible supply is a statistical visual look of inventory of blocks of municipal bonds that are about to come into the secondary market over the next month to become available for sale. What am I really telling you that this statistic is indicating? This inventory is not here for sale right now at this moment, but will become available for sale in the secondary market over the next month. Are you with me so far? Yes. So that must mean that the purpose of the visible supply reflects 7, the supply side of the municipal bond market. And that's what they want to know on NASDAQ. Are you with me? Yes. Your second statistic prepared within the bond buyer is called the placement ratio. The placement ratio goes to buying power, which reflects 7, the demand side for the municipal bond market. One statistic is supply side, the other statistic is demand side. And so we take a look at the bond buyer, the Bible print medium newspaper of the municipal bond markets. We also see broker communication network. This is sources of secondary market information that facilitate the buying and the selling and trading of municipal bonds amongst the broker dealers. Are you with me so far? Yes. You'd be hard pressed to buy and sell and trade municipal bonds if you were on a bond trading desk without 7 MuniFacts. MuniFacts is a bond wire news service that will provide you with up to the second pricing for GO and revenue municipal bonds that you would need if you're trading municipal bonds out there in the secondary market. And so, 3 significant sources of information relative to the secondary market. Can you repeat that? MuniFacts is a bond wire news service that gives you up to the second pricing of GO and revenue municipal bonds trading out there in the secondary market that you would need if you're on a trading desk. Are you with me so far? Yes. 3 very powerful sources of information, network systems, print mediums that are used to facilitate buying and selling and trading in the secondary market. And so, the secondary market is rather simple for the 7. Are you with me so far? Yes. Not many systems, but very powerful at that. But the regulation that we established yesterday associated with the primary market for municipal bonds or GO and revenue bond offerings regarding competitive and negotiated sale, that was extensive, as I'm sure you probably understand right now. And so now I want to talk to you about your final SRO that's going to step in right now and regulate the primary market for municipal bonds and regulate the secondary market trading of municipal bonds. And that SRO is Series 7 MSRB. I want you to listen to me now. From the moment that you're in the 7, all the way throughout the first part, and in staggering, relentless volume, they're going to come blasting and gunning for you with MSRB questions. The minimum is 35. The maximum is 51. On the regulations associated with this self-rulemaking organization, I am now going to speak to you from the voice of a regulatory authority. Are you with me so far? Yes. I want you to listen carefully. All questions on the 7 concerning MSRB are worded in the same manner. Under MSRB rules, control bonds. Under MSRB rules, the financial advisory relationship. Under MSRB rules, everything is worded in that manner. Are you with me so far? Yes. Now, I want to tell you about Congress. Congress told Wall Street member firms many, many years ago that we needed to establish regulatory authorities, regulatory agencies that are designed for the supervision of a broker-dealer investment bank's business. And it was a requirement. Are you with me so far? Yes. Congress told Wall Street, you member firms, you self-appoint these organizations. They're non-federal. There's only one federal agency, and that's the SEC. With me so far? Yes. And that's why they're called self-rulemaking organizations, because they were self-appointed and established at Congress's requirement by the member firm community. Are you with me so far? Yes. And we studied the first, which was NASD, now known as name change FINRA, which audits and supervises over-the-counter trading for every member firm. We studied the New York Stock Exchange, which acts as a regulatory authority that supervises and audits all firms' listed business for execution on the exchange. Are you with me so far? Yes. And now, MSRB. MSRB has been established at Congress's requirement to formulate Series 7 and interpret the bylaws and the rules of the municipal bond market. They have the rule book. Every regulation is set forth by MSRB. Listen to me carefully. Every aspect of the municipal bond market, buying and selling and trading, or even the principals and the supervisors that are in this industry as bond brokers and bond supervisors, every aspect of the municipal bond market, underwriting, secondary market trading, is all regulated by MSRB. They get the rule book, they get the bylaws. Are you with me so far? Yes. So the first question on NASDAQ is the purpose of MSRB. That they have established the bylaws and the rules and the regulations that regulate the municipal bond industry. Are you with me so far? Yes. Now, even to the extent of sending out bond research, municipal bond research, that's regulated by MSRB. Every aspect of the municipal bond market comes under the regulations and the rules of MSRB. But the problem is that Congress did not give MSRB enforcement powers over their own rules. They cannot enforce their own rules. They just simply have the bylaws. Are you with me so far? Congress has established other regulatory agencies, some SEC and federal there, and some other SROs, to act as the enforcement powers over MSRB rules should an institution in our industry require MSRB enforcement, because MSRB does not have enforcement powers over their own rules. Are you with me? Yes. The question now becomes, whom are the enforcement powers that have the authorization and the authority to enforce MSRB rules? And those enforcement powers differ depending upon the institution that require MSRB enforcement. Why don't we first begin by talking about the member firms, New York Stock Exchange and NASD investment bank broker-dealers. I'm talking about the investment firms on Wall Street. If they require enforcement over MSRB rules, the enforcement powers are, as you see, the NASD and the SEC. 7 over the member firms. Are you with me? Yes. Now, what happens if we have in the industry a national bank? This national bank out there in the market is buying and selling and trading municipal bonds, and this national bank requires enforcement powers over its MSRB rules. The enforcement powers over the national banks of MSRB rules are the controller of currency. 7. Now, what happens if we have a non-national bank or a regional bank? And this regional bank is a member of the Federal Reserve System. And this regional bank, non-national bank, member of the Fed, is requiring enforcement of its MSRB rules. The enforcement power there is the Federal Reserve Board itself. 7. Now, what happens if we have a non-national bank, also known as a regional bank, that is not a member of the Federal Reserve System, that requires enforcement powers of its MSRB rules? It is Series 7, the FDIC. Now, arbitration associated with a municipal bond transaction that was forced to arbitration by the client over the broker is the same as arbitration that was forced by the client over the firm and the broker regarding an over-the-counter transaction regarding equities. Under MSRB rules, arbitration is used to settle the customer dispute. Simplified arbitration involves $25,000 or less. 7, and arbitration is final and binding. There may be no appeal. Just like equities in the over-the-counter market on day one. Are you with me?
Yes.
Stay there. Now, anywhere on this entire examination, you see the word representative. You think, write this down right now, broker. Anywhere on this entire examination, you see the word principal, and you think supervisor. The word principal means supervisor. The word representative means broker. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Now, I'm looking at the area that says municipal securities representative. Are you with me on the same page here?
Yes.
Now, listen to me carefully. Put your pens down. MSRB is speaking to you today, speaking from the voice of this regulatory agency. And MSRB steps in and says, if you want to become a bond rep, a bond broker, the candidate has to meet certain qualifications, and they have to go through certain regulation licenses that they have to pass. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
And so now what I'm going to sum up for you are the MSRB rules that MSRB has established in order for a candidate to be considered a bond representative, a bond broker. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
I'm going from the bottom of that page all the way into the top of the next where it says qualification. Are you with me?
Yes.
Step 1, Regulation 1. MSRB says, want to be a bond rep? First qualification that must be met is you must be licensed. And the candidate has a choice to pass either the 7 or the 52. That's the number I give you. The candidate has 90 days to accomplish and pass either the 7 or the 52. And during that 90-day period of time under MSRB rules, the candidate is known as an apprentice. If the candidate has not passed either the 7 or the 52 within that allotted 90-day period of time as an apprentice, MSRB 7 will extend the apprenticeship period of time for an additional 90 days for a total of 180. If the candidate has not passed either the 7 or the 52 with that extended 180-day period of time, are you with me so far? The candidate is no longer an apprentice, and 7 reverts back to clerical status. Watch these regulations I give you. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Once the candidate has met the first qualifications during either the 90 or the 180-day period of time of passing either the 7 or the 52, now the candidate is registered. Next page. The candidate is only permitted to perform transactions as a registered representative exclusively with other bond professionals. That means other bond brokers. 7, no public customer orders may be executed and transacted. 7, straight salary must be paid and no commissions may be granted during this period of time. 7. Are you with me on these regulations?
Yes.
Because those are the regulations that must be met in order for the candidate to be qualified as a bond representative. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm into the area that says MSRB regulations and syndicate practices. And I said this to the crash, and I'm asking you now, I'm going to ask the same question. I can see this question coming up on NASDAQ. I want you to look at that heading one more time where it says MSRB regulations and syndicate practices. I mean, I can see the question forming right now. And the question would go something like this. Under MSRB rules, the MSRB regulations concerning syndicate practices regarding an underwriting, I could see the question. Now, let me ask you this question. You're in NASDAQ. You see language like this in a question, even before the question is fully completed and formed. MSRB regulations, syndicate practices, and I ask you, what do you think of? What comes to your mind? Cannot hear you. That's not good enough. They're talking about something very specific here regarding an underwriting. MSRB regulations, just listen to it one more time, syndicate practices. What are they talking about? What type of underwriting are they talking about? Well, of course we're in municipal bond underwritings. I mean, I was looking for something a little bit more specific than that. They're talking about go bonds. Why? Because there is no syndicate for a revenue offering. Revenue bonds are brought to market by means of a negotiated sale, there's only one issuer and one underwriter. So I told you yesterday, anytime you see the word syndicate in any location, they're talking about the syndicate members, the syndicate manager. They're talking about a general obligation underwriting. Are you with me so far? Yes. Here's what's happening in English. Let me give it to you in English. MSRB is going to step in right now and regulate the IPO rules and regulations in the process of going public. Are you with me? Yes. There are different IPO rules from MSRB's point of view for a GO offering versus a revenue offering. Are you with me? Yes. We begin with the rules and the regulations set forth by MSRB under the underwriting process associated with general obligation bonds. Now, more English before we get into the regulation. When we talk about this underwriting process, we talk about a competitive sale. And we talk about the syndicate manager, and we talk about selling group members. MSRB is going to step in first and regulate the selling group members. MSRB is going to say, if there's any orders, certain types of orders that the selling group members may have, before the syndicate manager can fill bonds for those orders to his selling group, are you with me so far? Yes. The identity, that's the key word here, that means for whom these specific orders are to be filled for, has to first be disclosed to the syndicate manager before the syndicate manager can fill the bond orders to the selling group under MSRB rules. So the question now becomes, which type of orders are we talking about whose identities must be first be disclosed to the syndicate manager before the syndicate manager can fill an allocation for those types of orders? And that lies right in that paragraph there in the second sentence, actually the last two words of the first sentence. If there's any member of the selling group who wants to get filled for Series 7 Bullet 1, a group order, pretty girls, group orders. Next sentence. Maybe they want to get filled for their own dealer account, Series 7, dealer account orders. Maybe they want to get filled by the syndicate manager for a related portfolio order that they might want to be putting underwriting IPO bonds in. Are you with me so far? Yes. A related portfolio order, or maybe for a municipal unit investment trust that they might want to be bringing public and put in their municipal bonds at the IPO. Or maybe they want to buy IPO bonds and fill an order for Series 7 an accumulation account. Accumulation account orders, municipal unit investment trusts, related portfolio orders, dealer orders, and group orders. The identities of those orders must be first disclosed to the syndicate manager. That means for whom those specific orders are to be filled for before the syndicate manager can allocate IPO inventory to those selling group members for those specific orders under MSRB rules. Are you with me? Yes. Now MSRB is going to set their sights on the syndicate manager. You remember I told you yesterday that the syndicate manager is acting in a fiduciary capacity over his selling group. Are you with me so far? Yes. Well, the syndicate manager has 4 specific responsibilities as a syndicate manager under MSRB rules over the selling group. Requirement number 1, syndicate manager, Series 7, right there, within 2 business days of the sale of these bonds at the IPO level. Know the number of days. The syndicate manager is required to send each member of his selling group a summary of the allocation of IPO bonds that's going to be filled for the selling group member as a priority over 7. The member order, which you know from yesterday could go unfilled. Are you with me? Yes. Syndicate manager, Series 7 Bullet 2. If there's going to be any profit that's going to be generated from a designated order, that profit from a designated order must be distributed within 30 business days of delivery of the securities to the client. Syndicate manager, Bullet 3. Settle the syndicate with the issuer within 60 days. The settlement of the syndicate means this. This is the period of time, how many days? 60, when the issuer receives the winning bid, the proceeds from the winning bid. Are you with me so far? Yes. And Wall Street receives the inventory. Are you with me so far? Yes. That's called the settlement of the syndicate. The period of time when the issuer receives the proceeds from the winning bid and Wall Street receives their inventory. Are you with me so far? Yes. During this settlement period of time, the syndicate manager, point 3, crucial, has the following responsibility. During the settlement period of time, the syndicate manager must provide an itemized statement of expenses, Series 7 Bullet 1, and distribute any profit to his selling group during the settlement period of time. Also, Series 7 Bullet 2, during the settlement period of time, the syndicate manager must provide a summary of the identity of any related portfolio order or group order that he filled. 7, Crucial step. Finally, syndicate manager. For all those selling group members who entered unsuccessful bids, because there's only one winning bid, am I right?
Yes.
Return all of the good faith deposit checks back to those selling group members that unsuccessfully bid, and hold on to the good faith deposit check for that winning selling group member, from that winning selling group member, to ensure that they would sell those bonds at that winning bid level. Following are the responsibilities of the syndicate manager in the fiduciary capacity over the selling group. Those are the responsibilities of the identity of certain types of orders that selling group members have to first disclose to the syndicate manager before they can be filled under MSRB rules regarding the syndicate of a GO underwriting under MSRB rules. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk to you about the secondary market trading of municipal bonds. But just before we do, I want to get into this area of a client, whether it's an institutional client, a retail client, who might want to buy IPO revenue bonds from an underwriter. Goldman Sachs brings public the New York State Port Authority. It is a revenue underwriting. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
A client buys IPO revenue bonds from Goldman Sachs. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
MSRB steps in and says to Goldman Sachs, by client settlement date, stop, time out, what does that mean? By the date that the client has paid for the security. We never sent out and disclosed any information to a client after settlement date. Everything is sent out to a client by settlement date. Well, if a client buys IPO revenue bonds from an underwriter, the underwriter has to send that client, by client settlement date, 3 pieces of information. Series 7, Bullet 1. How much money Goldman Sachs earned in this underwriting, known as 7, their underwriter spread. There's the word spread again, right? So if Mr. Johnson buys IPO bonds, 1226 in the body of my work. If Mr. Johnson buys IPO revenue bonds from Goldman Sachs, Goldman Sachs has to send out to that client, by client settlement date, how much money Goldman Sachs earned in this underwriting, known as the underwriter spread. Goldman Sachs, did your client, the New York State Port Authority, pay you any additional fees over and above your underwriter spread? Because if so, any additional compensation, Goldman Sachs, that you might have earned, you also have to disclose to that client by client settlement date if he's buying IPO revenue bonds. And of course, Series 7, Bullet 3, the initial reoffering prices for each of the maturity in the bond issue. 3 pieces of information an underwriter has to disclose and send out to a client by client settlement date if that client is buying IPO revenue bonds under MSRB rules. Are you with me?
Yes.
All right. Now it's time to put your pen down because we got to talk. You see there's another heading there. It says a financial advisory relationship. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you see that?
Yes.
You studied 2 relationships last night. The first, this financial advisory relationship that we're going to discuss now, and the second, a little bit later on, called a control relationship regarding the buying and the selling and trading of control bonds. Now, I want to give you some perspective for the 7. Are you with me?
Yes.
The definition of the relationship is not on the exam. Listen to me. There aren't many people that know what I know. I want you to listen to me. This is the kind of thing that you kind of have to isolate and identify and write down in your notes. When I qualify what's on that test and how it's coming. Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
The definition of a financial advisory relationship, the definition of a control relationship is not on the exam. What is are the rules and the regulations that surround the existence of the relationship. Let me ask you a question. Where are you going to go, and who do you think is going to tell you something like that? Listen to what I'm telling you. No one. Listen to what I'm saying to you. Now, I don't trust you. I'm never going to trust you until you're licensed. You know that, and you want me that way. So before we go into the rules and the regulations that surround the existence of the relationship, I think I better give you the definition of the relationship first in any case. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
I'm talking about a financial advisory relationship, and I'm going to do it in the form of a trade, like I do everything else. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
New York State Port Authority wants a $7 billion underwriting done to build a new transit system. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
They tap in Goldman Sachs. New York State Port Authority says, let's sign this agreement among underwriters. This is a revenue underwriting. Are you with me so far? Negotiated sale between you and I. Goldman Sachs, New York State Port Authority says, we'd like you to also be our financial advisor. Yes, you're going to be our underwriter in this underwriting, but we'd like you to be our financial advisor. And we'll pay you a fee to act as our financial advisor. This is in addition to your underwriter spread for bringing us public. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Now, the definition of a financial advisor relationship is established when an issuer, like the New York State Port Authority, a company, retains the services of a broker-dealer, Goldman Sachs, for very specific financial advice. And that is, Series 7, the timing and the structuring of the underwriting. The timing and the structuring of the underwriting. Okay. Well, I think we can understand the timing of the underwriting and what that means. That means if the New York State Port Authority retains Goldman Sachs, for Goldman Sachs to tell the New York State Port Authority, listen to this, when New York State Port Authority should go public, the timing of the IPO, when it should go public, are you with me so far? And the structuring of the underwriting. Now, what does that mean? What does the structuring of an underwriting mean? Can you tell me? Because yesterday we studied 3 structures of a bond issue, and they were term, serial, and balloon. So what does the structure of a bond offering mean? What is the structure of a bond issue? Can you tell me? I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The manner in which the interest and the principal are
The manner in which debt service is being repaid. Specifically how the New York State Port Authority is repaying interest and principal to bondholders. I mean, if they're just paying interest to bondholders who bought into the bond offering every year and no principal, the principal only being retired and repaid at the maturity of the bond offering, that is a term bond structure. Am I right?
Yes.
They're paying some interest and some principal each year so that over the life of a 30-year maturity, the entire debt service payment plan has been retired. That is a serial bond structure. And the combination of both types of structures of some of the par value being retired serially and some of the par value being retired as term bonds is known as a balloon bond structure. So, if the New York State Port Authority retains the services of Goldman Sachs and pays them for Goldman Sachs to tell the New York State Port Authority when they should go public and specifically what type of debt service payment plan they should engage in, we have the establishment of a financial advisory relationship. And so they sign a financial advisory agreement. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
And I want to tell you now, Goldman Sachs is the New York State Port Authority's financial advisor on the MSRB rules. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
And they signed an agreement today, and 6 months go by, and the New York State Port Authority calls up Goldman Sachs and said, listen, we signed that financial advisory agreement 6 months ago, you know, regarding that $7 billion underwriting, but we haven't heard from you. Well, you're paying us as your financial advisor to tell you when to go public, and the timing in the market with respect to this slow recovery really could not withstand a $7 billion underwriting. And so now that we're speaking, we're looking at the second quarter of 2010. Okay, that's fine. As far as the structure of the bond issues debt service payment plan, we highly recommend an accelerated serial bond structured debt service payment plan. Let's not have to worry about coming up with $7 billion in par value in year 2030 to repay. Let's pay interest and principal over the life each year of the maturity of the bond offering so that by the time the year 2030 rolls around, the entire debt service payment plan is retired. Pay me for that financial advice. Done! MSRB steps in and says to Goldman Sachs, why don't you tell us your role with your client, the New York State Port Authority? And Goldman Sachs says to MSRB, we're glad to. See that client out there, New York State Port Authority? That's our client. We're going to bring them public, probably in the second quarter of 2010, as their underwriter in a negotiated sale regarding a revenue bond IPO, and we're going to receive an underwriter spread for that underwriting. And we're also our client's financial advisor, and we're getting paid a financial advisory fee to tell them when to go public and the structured debt service payment plan. So MSRB pulls out the rule book and starts to turn to page 1082 in the rule book. What page was that, Alan? 182, 1082, not 182, 1082, thousands of pages. And MSRB looks in their rule book and they said, no, we have a problem here, Goldman Sachs. You see, on page 1082, what page was that? 1082. In the bylaws of MSRB, the rule book, you are not allowed to act as a financial advisor to an issuer and simultaneously act as an underwriter regarding a negotiated sale for a negotiated underwriting revenue bond offering. You see, we see that here, page 1082, as a conflict. Now, in order for you, Goldman Sachs, to participate and bring them public in this underwriting, where you are also simultaneously their financial advisor, are you with me so far? You're going to have to, Series 7, Bullet 1, terminate the financial advisory relationship prior to participating in this underwriting. Bullet 2. You, Goldman Sachs, have to both verbally and in writing disclose to your client, the New York State Port Authority, that under MSRB rules, The existence of this financial advisory relationship represents a conflict and must be terminated. Now, disclosure. Series 7, Bullet 3. Your client, Goldman Sachs, the New York State Port Authority, they must also disclose back to you both verbally and in writing that they understand the conflict and agree that the financial advisory relationship must be terminated as well. Disclosure back and forth, both verbally and in writing, between the issuer and the broker-dealer underwriter. And finally, MSRB says to Goldman Sachs, and oh, by the way, Goldman Sachs, if you sell these bonds to any client, are you with me so far?
Yes.
Where you had a financial advisory relationship, then you must let that client know that Series 7, by client settlement date, by the time the client owns these bonds, are you with me so far?
Yes.
That the financial advisory relationship has been terminated because a conflict of interest exists. If that disclosure is not made by you, Goldman Sachs, to your clients who buy IPO revenue bonds, where you had this financial advisory relationship which represented a conflict by client settlement date, you may not affect the transaction and buy clients' IPO bonds. They can't even do the sale unless that disclosure is made both verbally and writing to a client by settlement date. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
So we have a lot of regulations associated with the termination of the financial advisory relationship prior to the participation in a revenue bond IPO for an underwriter under MSRB rules. Are you with me so far? Now, if we back into this relationship, if you'll allow me, between the New York State Port Authority and Goldman Sachs, I would like to tell you again that the New York State Port Authority and Goldman Sachs today signed a financial advisory agreement, and Goldman Sachs is now the New York State Port Authority's financial advisor. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
The New York State Port Authority has asked Goldman Sachs to act as a syndicate manager. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
For a $500 million general obligation bond. It seems to be that Goldman Sachs understands that their client is in need of capital. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
So they need some working capital for general financial purposes. Now MSRB steps in and says to Goldman Sachs, now why don't you explain to us your role with your client? We see that client out there, New York State Port Authority, that's our client. And we're their financial advisor, receiving a financial advisory fee. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
To tell them about the structuring and the debt service payment plan and the timing of a general obligation bond offering. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Now it's GO. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
We're also the syndicate manager to this underwriting, and we're working for a syndicate managerial fee. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Off the total gross underwriting spread. Now, MSRB says, now hang on a second, I've got to check the rule book on this one. You mean to say that you're a syndicate manager, Goldman Sachs, you're going to perform a competitive sale regarding a GO mini-bond IPO. You're working for a syndicate managerial fee, and you're also the client's financial advisor receiving a financial advisory fee? That's correct, MSRB. You couldn't have it more correct. Well, the question now becomes, does MSRB see this financial advisory relationship as a conflict of interest as well here, while the underwriter is a syndicate manager working for a syndicate managerial fee regarding the GO bond underwriting? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no?
No.
Yes or no? The answer is no. The answer is there is no conflict here. An underwriter may act as Series 7, a syndicate manager, regarding a competitive sale for a GO IPO and simultaneously maintain a financial advisory relationship to earn financial advisory fees without conflict. It is a conflict for a negotiated sale on a revenue bond IPO, not for a competitive sale for GO. 7. So we see the regulations surrounding the existence of the relationship without primarily being concerned about the definition of the relationship itself. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Now I'm into delivery. Are you with me?
Yes.
I am, listen to me, leaving the IPO rules now. We've established them. And now I'm going to talk to you from the voice of MSRB about the buying and selling and trading of municipal bonds out there in the secondary market. And MSRB is going to regulate the secondary market as well. Are you with me?
Yes.
So if you'll allow me, I'm in the secondary market now. Are you with me?
Yes.
I'm going to do an institutional transaction with you. So I want you to put your pens down. I have MSRB firm number 1, David Lerner and Associates, quality bond house, MSRB member firm. And David Lerner and Associates contacts MSRB member firm number 2, Solomon Smith Barney. Watch this trade. This is an institutional transaction. David Lerner calls up Solly and says, Solly, David Lerner here, how are you? Good afternoon. We understand that you there, Solomon Brothers, you own a position in your inventory trading account of a $1.2 billion block of State of Maryland revenue bonds. Is that true, Solomon Brothers? Yes, it is true, David Lerner. How can we help you? Well, we have a client on behalf of David Lerner, one of our institutional clients, that's interested in that block. So we here, David Lerner, would like to buy that block from you, Solomon Brothers, so we can fill our client's needs. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
The seller is Sally. The buyer is David Lerner. This is an institutional transaction, one broker-dealer to another. MSRB steps in and says to the selling broker-dealer, Solomon Brothers, are you with me so far?
Yes.
Seller, you are required to deliver this inventory, to deliver these bonds to the buying broker-dealer, David Lerner and Associates, and what is considered to be under MSRB rules, good and proper deliverable form. Are you with me so far? There's a certain proper deliverable form that these inventory must be delivered in by the selling broker-dealer to the buying broker-dealer. And now the definition of delivery. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Good deliverable form means that if these bonds happen to be bearer bonds, Series 7 Bullet 1, where imprinted on the face of the bond certificate is the word bearer. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
If they happen to be bearer bonds, then every one of those bearer bonds must each have physically attached to the certificate itself all unpaid coupons attached, and those coupons must be 7 in quality mint condition. The legal opinion, Series 7 Bullet 2, whether qualified or unqualified, in form, must be, look at me, imprinted on the face of the certificate, or could be on a separate sheet of paper, but physically attached to the physical bond certificate as the second definition of good deliverable form. Watch this little trivia. The 7 will rip you apart. Are you with me?
Yes.
Denomination, Series 7 Bullet 3 may only be in $1,000 or $5,000 increments. And Series 7, these bonds may not be called away by the issuer. Now, who is the issuer of these bonds? State of Maryland. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
There's something about the block, $1.2 billion, that David Lerner is buying from Sally that I'd like to tell you. This inventory, the $1.2 billion block of State of Maryland bonds, they happen to have a call feature attached to them, and the bonds are callable bonds. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Now, what did we just read about this call feature? It said here that it would be a violation of delivery by the selling broker-dealer if the issuer of the bond, State of Maryland, stepped in and decided to exercise their right and call away those bonds from the buying broker-dealer in the middle of this transaction. Are you with me so far? That's not 100% accurate. The issuer could step in and call away this inventory and engage in debt restructuring and exercise their right to call away these bonds from the buying broker-dealer, provided that when they step in to call away these bonds, Series 7 Bullet 1, they call them all or call them none. State of Maryland has to call the full $1.2 billion inventory. So therefore, a partial call implemented by the issuer would be a violation. Am I right?
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yes.
And not only a full call, but call them all and call them none on or prior to this inventory being delivered to the buying broker-dealer. Not after David Lerner has purchased the inventory, on or prior to delivery to the buying broker-dealer. And then that would not be a violation of the call feature. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
And so if a seller has met the definition of the MSRB rules for municipal bonds as to what is considered to be proper and good deliverable form, then the delivery comes. Are you with me so far? In that form which is compliant. Now, I'm still in the middle of this transaction. I want you to look at me. What does the buying broker-dealer do now? Well, they're looking to receive the inventory, and when they receive the inventory, their first requirement under MSRB rules is to inspect the inventory to determine if the seller has violated delivery. Am I right?
Yes.
Upon initial inspection, the buying broker-dealer in this particular trade, David Lerner Associates, sees that there are some missing legal opinions. They see denominations other than $1,000 or $5,000 increments. They see that these bonds happen to have been bearer bonds. All of the unpaid coupons are not physically attached to the bearer bond certificates. They see a violation of good deliverable form. MSRB will allow the buying broker-dealer Series 7 to implement rejection. The buying broker-dealer will reject the inventory back to the seller. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Because the seller has violated delivery. Step 2. Look at me. Look at me. The buying broker, David Lerner Associates, receives the inventory. Step 1 is to inspect that inventory to determine if the seller, Sally, violated delivery. Am I right?
Yes.
Upon initial inspection, the buying broker-dealer has determined no violation of good deliverable form. The buying broker-dealer, David Lerner, formally accepts the inventory from the seller. After acceptance of the inventory, the buying broker-dealer, David Lerner and Associates, has seen now in the aftermath, a violation of delivery that was not initially seen upon initial inspection. MSRB then will allow the buying broker-dealer, Series 7, to implement reclamation. To reclaim the bonds is for the buying broker-dealer to reject the bonds back to the selling broker-dealer after they had originally accepted them, because the violation of delivery was not seen until after acceptance. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
I need you to look at me. What if the buying broker-dealer implemented rejection or reclamation because the seller violated delivery? Am I right?
Yes.
That would mean what in this trade? That would mean that the buying broker-dealer, David Leonard Associates, does not have the inventory now. Am I right?
Yes.
So as not to allow the buying broker-dealer to go with that inventory so they can fill the institutional client needs, the buying broker-dealer would be allowed under MSRB rules, look at me, to step into the secondary market and implement 7, a buy-in and a closeout. Buy-in closeout means this: to buy into the secondary market. David Leonard will be allowed to buy into the secondary market a similar block by similar, if not same issuer, with similar par value and similar features, so that they can close out this transaction with that seller, so that they can fill the institutional client needs with inventory, because the selling broker-dealer has violated delivery. But if the buying broker-dealer was allowed to implement the buy-in and the closeout, the seller would have to pay for the trade. So it's very expensive for a selling broker-dealer to violate delivery. Are you with me so far? They would have to pay for the trade, for the purchase of the inventory for David Lerner. Are you with me so far? We see the definition of good deliverable form on a dealer-to-dealer transaction. We see rejection, reclamation, and buy-in and closeout in the secondary market on an institutional transaction. And now we move into a more ambiguous relationship. I'm talking control relationship regarding control bonds. Remember what I told you. The definition of the relationship is not on the 7. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
But the rules and the regulations that surround the existence of the relationship are, well, again, before we go into the regulations surrounding the existence of the relationship, I think I better give you the definition of the relationship first. Are you with me?
Yes.
I feel a whole lot better if I do anyway. But this relationship is not as straightforward as the financial advisory relationship. It's a little bit more far-reaching and ambiguous, so I'd like you to listen to me. New York State Port Authority wants to go public. Goldman Sachs is going to perform the underwriting. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
At the time of the underwriting, listen carefully. Goldman Sachs, the underwriter, employs the certified financial officer of the New York State Port Authority as an employee of Goldman Sachs. Look at the CFO. Listen to the person I'm qualifying for you. This is an individual who's called a control person. A control person is someone who has some significant managerial control of that company. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
And so therefore, we have Goldman Sachs that's going to bring New York State Port Authority public. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
And at the time of the underwriting, the underwriter employs the control person of the issuer. They're underwriting. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
When that happens, when the underwriter employs a control person of the issuer that they are underwriting, are you with me so far? We have the establishment of what is called a control relationship. A control relationship exists when the broker-dealer underwriter employs a control person of the same issuer they're underwriting at the same time of the underwriting. Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
Now, there is a broker at Goldman. Are you listening to me?
Yes.
And this broker is one of their top 5 in the office. Powerful broker. He's got significant clients. He's got discretionary accounts, power of attorney on file. And this financial advisor and broker believes that the underwriting IPO position, buying some of these IPO bonds, would be dynamic for his discretionary clients. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
So this broker wants to buy some of his clients some IPO bonds. Are you with me so far? New York State Port Authority IPO bonds. MSRB steps in and says to Goldman Sachs and that broker, you cannot do this transaction and buy that client or any of those clients that you have a discretionary relationship with IPO bonds unless you, the broker, first seek Series 7 client written authorization prior to execution. That's Series 7 Bullet 1. And Series 7 Bullet 2, by client settlement date, Goldman Sachs and the financial advisor must both verbally and in writing disclose to that client the existence of the control relationship. Otherwise, the trade cannot be facilitated. Are you with me so far? Are you with me so far? Now I have a question for you. What has MSRB rules done to the discretionary relationship that that broker has with his discretionary clients concerning control bond transactions, because that's the key to the regulation. They've done something. What is the broker required to get? Written authorization prior to execution of a client or his clients that he has powers of attorney with. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
So therefore, I ask you, what happened to the discretionary relationship? It's broken. Well, you use the word broken. It's okay. I mean, I'll take it. It's not broken, but it has been terminated. Are you with me so far? But I'll take the word broken because I'm pretty desperate. Right. When you are required to seek written authorization of a client that you have power of attorney with, MSRB has eliminated the discretionary and terminated the discretionary relationship, has broken the discretionary relationship, and disclosure must be made regarding the buying and selling and trading of control bonds. Are you with me so far? Yes. Once these bonds are known as control bonds, they will always be known as control bonds at the IPO and even in the secondary market. Are you with me so far? Even if that, are you with me so far? Even if that CFO leaves after the underwriting and no longer employs the control person of the issue where they underwrote, these bonds will always be known as control bonds. And so now we have some of the regulation there that we need regarding the control relationship. Are you with me?
Yes.
Well, now I want to do another trade with you. And I want to tell you what happened. You remember that transaction that Solly blew because they violated delivery regarding the $1.2 billion block of state of Maryland bonds to David Lerner? Well, 6 months have gone by since that transaction. Are you with me so far? And Solomon Brothers picks up the phone and calls up David Lerner today again. And says, listen, David Lerner, we know you're pretty upset with us regarding that trade 6 months ago. You know, the $1.2 billion block of state of Maryland bonds. It really wasn't our intention to inconvenience you and violate delivery. Don't be so upset. I mean, MSRB did allow you to step into the secondary market and implement buying a closeout, and we did have to pay for the trade, but we know that it was rather inconvenient. And so that's the purpose of the call today. We kind of want to make amends. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
And so David Lerner says, well, what do you got in mind? Well, we here at Solly, listen to this transaction, own in our own inventory proprietary trading account a $2.5 billion block of Iowa bonds. Revenue bonds. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
We propose this. Why don't you and I, you know, to make up, why don't we open up a joint account? 2 MSRB member firms opening up a joint account. Solly says to David Lerner, we're going to take the $2.5 billion block of state of Iowa revenue bonds. We're going to put that block into this account. And then we'll blow the block out to the street for sale and whack up the commission. How's that for making up what we did 6 months ago in the trade that we blew? Wow. So here's the question on joint accounts. Will MSRB rules allow 2 MSRB member firms to establish and open up a joint account for the sale of a block of municipal bonds to split commissions? Yes or no?
No.
Yes.
Yes or no?
No.
The answer is yes. However, what is required? Which is the key to the regulation on joint accounts. Well, if you thought it was no, then you can't know what the regulations are, so I'll tell you. What is required is that when these 2 firms publish a quote on that block for sale to the street, are you with me so far?
Yes.
They both publish 1 firm 2-sided bid offer quote regarding the sale of that one block coming out of that joint account to split commissions under MSRB rules. Now, why is that such a significant regulation? Here's why. Look at me. What if Solly were allowed to publish 1 bid and offer regarding the sale of that block, and then coming out of the same account now regarding the same block sale, Solly publishes 1 bid and offer block, and David Lerner publishes a different bid offer quote regarding the sale of that same block coming out of the same account? What might the markets represent that to mean? More than 1 market and or more than 1 block, which is manipulative. Are you with me so far? Yes. So they can sell that block to the Street of Dreams and split the commission, provided that they both together publish 1 uniform, firm, 2-sided bid offer quote regarding the sale of that 1 block to the Street of Dreams under MSRB rules. I am now into the area. Are you with me?
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Good. Called the use of ownership information that was obtained by a broker-dealer that acted in an agency or a fiduciary role for a client. Now, I know that sounds fancy. Are you with me? So don't worry about it, because I'm just going to do the trade for you. Are you with me?
Yes.
I'll do it in English. Now, let's take a look at this trade. Don't read. Look at me. I got New York State Port Authority again. Bless you, means it's true. And they contact Goldman Sachs, and they say, Goldman, Listen, thanks for the geo underwriting. Boy, we really needed that money. And we're working on the feasibility study regarding the revenue bond negotiated sale. Thank you for being our financial advisor. We're paying for you that financial advisor relationship for you too as well. We need you for everything. Listen, Goldman, would you do one other thing for us here at the New York State Port Authority? Be our transfer agent. Oh, we'll pay you for that too. Everything on Wall Street's a la carte. What does a transfer agent function do? Well, it's a Wall Street back office function that we perform for many clients in the private sector. The definition of the transfer agent function is that when people buy securities, are you with me so far? Yes. The transfer agent will print up those securities with client names on the certificates and cert numbers for identification and put those securities in industry, in the market, in circulation. Are you with me so far? Yes. And when people liquidate and sell their securities, are you with me so far? Yes. Those securities, those certificates have to be canceled and taken out of circulation from the market. And so the definition of the transfer agent is simple. They issue certificates to new buyers of record, and they cancel certificates when people sell securities. Are you with me so far? Yes. This transfer agency function warrants a transfer agency fee. This is what is meant when a broker-dealer is acting in an agency capacity, performing an agency function of a transfer agent role. Are you with me? Yes. So what do you think Goldman Sachs has said? We're happy to do that for you, New York State Port Authority. As long as you pay us, we'll be your transfer agent too. Are you with me? Yes. And guess what Goldman Sachs sees today acting as their client, the New York State Port Authority's transfer agent? They see that Mr. Dan Boone of Alamo, Texas, just bought $250,000 worth of New York State Port Authority bonds. And they know that. They just got the order as the transfer agent and printed up the certificates hot right off the press. Are you with me? Yes. Are you with me? Yes. Goldman Sachs then picks up the phone and calls up Dan Boone in Irving, Alamo, Texas, and said, Dan Boone, Goldman Sachs, all world be free, New York Stock Exchange, MSRB member firm, Wall Street here. How are you today, Mr. Boone? We are the New York State Port Authority transfer agent. And we see that you just bought $250,000 worth of New York State Port Authority bonds. We know that because we just printed up those certificates with your name on them. Hey, Mr. Boone, would you like us here at Goldman Sachs to send those certificates down there to Texas to you? Or would you like us to hold on those certificates for your safekeeping? Oh, hell, you one of them big boys. I've seen you all on a television. You ain't one of them small little boutiques. I trust you all. You hang on to those certificates for me, okay, Goldman? Listen, Mr. Boone, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much. We'll hold them here for you at the broker-dealer for safekeeping. Just a few questions, moment of your time, Mr. Boone. Are you in the market? Hell, our family's been with Merrill Lynch. We've been in the market for more than a goddamn century. Listen, what's your name? Goldman? Yeah, Goldman. I can't really talk to you right now because our family, for more than a century, we've been in the refinery business down here in Texas, and I got this refinery number 8, that's spitting out that black crude. I got to get down there. I can't really talk right now. Not a problem, Mr. Boone. Mr. Boone, just one more moment of your time. You said you were with Merrill Lynch for many years. How much would you say that you have invested with the family of Merrill Lynch? Oh, hell, could be 40, 50 million. Listen, I really don't know, but I can't really talk right now. Not a problem. You know, Mr. Boone, one of our senior portfolio investment advisors is coming down to God's country in the Southwest Bible Belt, right in your neck of the woods next week to service some of our existing clients. Might we give him the opportunity to put on one of those hard hats? Swing by the old refinery and talk to you about some of the exciting recommendations that Goldman Sachs is putting forward in the first quarter of 2010 that Merrill Lynch might not have available for you, that might represent some significant tax loopholes that you might want to consider for your portfolio. What's going on over here? I want to know what Goldman Sachs is doing with this man. This is a client of Merrill. What is Goldman Sachs doing with Mr. Boone? Say the word. Right, they're soliciting him. How did Goldman Sachs know about Mr. Boone? They're not a client of Goldman Sachs. This guy's not a client of Goldman Sachs, nor is his family. He's a client of Merrill. The only way that Goldman Sachs knew about Mr. Boone was because Goldman Sachs acted as a New York State Port Authority transfer agent. And so I want you to listen to me. Do you believe that MSRB is going to allow a transfer agent who is obtaining information of a client base by acting in a fiduciary capacity as a transfer agent function to be allowed to take those clients, contact those clients, and solicit them for profit motive? I mean, how fair is that to the Merrills of the world and the other firms that don't even know about Dan Boone? Can Goldman Sachs solicit this man, yes or no? Yes. The answer is yes. Yes. What's required? There's not much you know. Look, if you give me the right answer, I just may fall over. What's required? in order for Goldman Sachs to solicit clients that they have obtained by acting as a transfer agent for an issuer, what is required? As long as Goldman Sachs Series 7 receives Series 7 written consent from their client, the New York State Port Authority, they can let her rip. Are you with me? Are you with me? All they need is Series 7 written permission from their client, the New York State Port Authority, and they will allow to solicit those clients that they've obtained by acting in a fiduciary function, that information, with the permission of the issuer. Are you with me so far? The written permission of the issuer. Are you with me?
Yes.
Well, I got to tell you something. The final point here, and the end of these municipal bonds already, is that it's about 3:45 p.m., 15 minutes left to the market close, and the phone rings, and I think we started out this way on the beginning of this training program, and I got to tell you who's calling you. It's the Director of Compliance. And that's not good! Believe me. It's not good. And Compliance says, you got to come on down here and miss the market for the next 15 minutes because we have to talk about Mrs. Finkelstein. Forget about Mrs. Finkelstein. I'm taking the market. I'll see you at 4:15. Of course, that's the response you're not going to give. It's the one you want to give, but you're going to go running down because it's about your license. And so you go running down and you said, okay, what's the problem with Mrs. Finkelstein? What's the problem with Mrs. Finkelstein? Sit down, big shot. I'll tell you what the problem is. She's just filed a customer complaint against you and us here at the firm because she said you violated her suitability regarding her bond risk portfolio, regarding her municipal bond investment. Are you kidding me? Are we in the twilight zone? I gave her a bond portfolio with a 13% nominal yield. You can't get 3% out there in the marketplace if you try for the next 20 years. Yes, I know. But you failed to qualify that these bonds were Nicaraguan bonds of a junk bond below investment grade status. And there was a coup d'etat last quarter in Nicaragua. The government is not there. They defaulted on the bond interest. She said you violated her risk and suitability. So, on December 2nd of 2009, she's taking you to arbitration. Now, I will hold your commissions in escrow. If you lose the arbitration, you're fired, and I'm giving out your clients, so you're with me so far.
Yes.
And if you win, we'll take you back. Oh, by the way, either prior to arbitration or at the arbitration hearing, you better call up Mrs. Finkelstein and send her a copy, Series 7, of the investor brochure under MSRB rules, which is a document that informs your clients of their rights in arbitration against the firm. Are you with me so far? I even have to do that too? Yeah, you even have to do that too. It's your responsibility to inform your clients of their rights in arbitration. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
By sending them a copy of the investor brochure. Now, final point is that MSRB, just like FINRA, just like the New York Stock Exchange, can walk into any firm. Are you with me so far? Unannounced. They don't need an appointment. Are you with me so far? Even though they're respectfully cordial, they probably will give you an appointment, but they could come in unannounced, ask to meet with the Director of Compliance, because that's the first person they're going to meet with, and ask the following question. Listen, Compliance, show us your written supervisory manual. You know, that manual that supervises all of your registered representatives on the opening and the maintenance of municipal bond transactions. And I got to tell you something right now. If the firm cannot provide MSRB with that written supervisory manual, MSRB could shut that firm down and hit it with a cease and desist order from continuing to transact with municipal bonds. Every MSRB member firm is required to maintain a written supervisory manual that instructs and informs its financial advisors the following. Series 7, Bullet 1, how each municipal bond transaction account is opened, the handling of any and all written customer complaints and any and all correspondence. The handling of any and all written customer complaints and correspondence, and how financial advisors are supervised regarding the opening and the handling of each transaction for a municipal bond. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
That is the content of the supervisory manual that is maintained under MSRB rules, means it's true. End of municipal bonds. I'm just getting warmed up. Take a 15-minute break, and when you come back, I'm going to light it up. We'll go in the Treasury auction market, the primary auction for Treasury securities, and then agency securities. I'll see you in 15. Thank you. Got no